hello from my new desk. I'm so excited. It's actually big enough to work on, and I'm very excited about it. And thanks to my hubby for putting it together for me, because if I had to put it together, it wouldn't have happened. I wanted to share a couple of ways I help myself make decisions that I've used in my pregnancy process and in my naming process. When I had Judah, I was so focused on the end result that I knew exactly what I wanted and I was gonna fight to do it. There were definitely things that happened outside of my control, like I had him in the middle of Hurricane Sandy and that wasn't ideal. But overall, I was so resolved that I just was unwavering, and I don't know how else to describe that. I was so focused on the decisions that I had made inside of myself. When I was pregnant with Reagan, I had done this before. The first time I'd never done it before. The second time I had. And you bring the traumas and the victories with you into the next round. It was a lot to unpack. You know, anything in your life that is transformative comes with traumas and with victories, in my personal opinion. And so there were decisions that I had to make that I was paralyzed with choice. I just didn't know what the right one was. I didn't want to hurt people's feelings. I wanted to have a support system, but I was having a hard time just knowing what to do. And it was getting to be the end of my pregnancy, and I needed to have my birth plan settled. And it was just a point of an indecision tornado inside of my body, because I just did not know what the right decision was. Every decision had an equal list of pros and cons. And Joe said to me, you need to just go out for a walk. Leave your phone in the house and go for a walk. And so I did. I find the woods to be such a comforting place. I love trees. It's just so peaceful. So I went out and just took a little walk in the woods, and I just didn't think about anything. I didn't try to keep chewing on this decision. I just went out for a peaceful walk, and I just focused on my walk. I focused on my baby, and I talked to her, and I rubbed my belly, and I looked up at the trees. And it was so amazing because I went out there just to unplug, but I found the answers to all of my questions out on that walk, because I just let peace rise to the surface. And I realized that I was paralyzed in indecision because I was basing so much factor on fear. How would people respond, etc., etc., etc. I had to let people handle it however they were going to handle it. I had no control over someone's reactions. I can be a kind person and a good person and also say, I can't have you there. And they have to handle it. I can't handle it for them. I can't make my decisions based on how somebody's going to handle a situation. And another tool that I have used with making hard decisions is that I look at decisions like gardens or fruit trees, right? You plant a seed now, what will that look like in time? Sometimes I close my eyes and I imagine standing in that situation in 5-10 years, and how do I feel and what does it look like, and I visualize it. And I go, well, that's definitely not what I thought it was going to be. Or I say, I need to go back to the drawing board and rework this out. Or I say, yes. That has helped me so much with decisions. With Silas, I carried the previous 2 victories and trauma into that pregnancy, and that pregnancy had its own major traumas. It ended up being a victory in the end, but so many serious decisions had to be made, and I found myself in that same loop of what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Because no decision was ideal. And sometimes when you are faced in an unideal situation, whether you are emotionally frustrated or emotionally checked out or just carrying around a burden of trauma, you have to make a decision almost third person. And I just had to make a call. And I had to just be okay with what that was going to look like. Would I do things differently looking back now? Of course. But in the moment, you can only do the best you can. And then when it's over, give yourself the grace to say, yeah, I did my best. And under the circumstances, I did a good job. The future self will obviously make better decisions. But you can't be your future self until you get through this thing. A part of adventuring and doing life and just reality is that things happen, and things happen outside of our control. We can only show up with the tools that we have in that moment, and we have to let the rest go. So the 3 things, the takeaways. Stop overthinking about it. You need to unplug and just allow peace to rise to the surface, to allow your heart to speak to you, and to not talk over top of your inner self all the time with what's going on in your brain. You need to give your insides the space to breathe and to speak to you. The second thing is you need to visualize the scenarios that you're going through and the outcomes. And the third thing is that nothing is ideal. I just don't think anybody is going to get it exactly how they want it to. And you have to be flexible and give yourself the grace and say, it is what it is. And you just have to make a decision and live with it. If you make a decision and constantly look back, it will rob you of your future. It will rob you of your present. You have to let it go. You did the best you could in that moment. If a decision can be remedied, great. But if it just is what it is, you are just being so cruel to yourself by dwelling on something that's already happened. You have to just find healing, and you have to separate fact from fiction, ideals from reality, and just be okay that it is what it is, and know that you are a good person and a strong person and a kind person, and know you're not crazy. You are having a human experience, and you're learning and growing and healing. And really, there's nowhere else you should be other than those things. If you're learning and growing and healing, it's perfect. And you're doing a good job. Love ya. Get yourself a cup of coffee and cheers.